Hello everybody, and I'm here to talk about my Herkyet progress for the month of September. Now, I will hopefully have it on the screen where I was at the end of August, because I don't really remember, but according to these stats on my Storygraph challenge, I am 28% into the challenge right now with 5% bonus also achieved. Let's go through it. In the month of September I read a ton, and I must say that I also didn't fully spend ages trying to figure out which book could potentially fit which prompt, so it is still possible that I could have gotten further along in this challenge over the month of September. For example, I'm very much thinking here of the challenge of the publication years. I haven't checked the publication years for the books that I've read, so potentially some of these could have fit in one of those slots. But you know what, I wasn't really interested in that all that much, so I just slotted the books into some of these categories, but I definitely think we did make some progress, at least in the month of September. So first up we have the By the 100 challenge, which I will say I made no progress in throughout this month, but that's a lie apparently. So I did read a book for the page number 400 to 499, for which I read The Expanded Earth, which unfortunately was the book that I didn't like all that much. It is a book about the human race having been shrunken down to the size of a foot, and the calamities that ensue. For a further exploration of my thoughts on these, please go and check out the monthly wrap-up. So that means that I am pretty far into that challenge. I just have the 600 and the 700 page length to go in that challenge, and then I will have completely fulfilled that particular prompt. The one that I'm kind of struggling with, and I definitely need to start fitting in at some point, is the series Stairwell, because I haven't really made any progress in that. I mean, I'm sure I could put something here in for the standalone, for example. I just feel like that is the last thing that I'm going to be filling in, because I always find it a little bit stupid to fill something into that slot, I guess. But I definitely need to make sure that I'm reading some duologies, trilogies and quadrilogies, but in their entirety. I've definitely read first book in the series that fit for that. For the quadrilogy I've read the final two, I think, or something within the time period that qualified for Herkyet. But so I need to make sure that I'm slotting these in, because definitely a quadrilogy I'm gonna need some time, so I need to plan those. So, as I said, for the last 10-year publication challenge, potentially I've read some books that actually could fit in here, but actually only slotted in one at the time for the time being. So potentially this will change by the end of the year. I might actually go back at some point to check if I haven't missed some things that I could count for something else. But so yes, we have the last 10-year challenge 2025, so a new release for which I slotted in Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab, which is a vampire book set across 3 different time periods, following 3 females who, well, I was going to say 3 vampires, but that's not fully true. But so we're following 3 characters, and there's a sapphic love story involved as well. And so yes, we go through the ages. For my full thoughts again, go to that video. I enjoyed this one, but I also do have my qualms with part of it. All the adaptations, nothing added here, so I don't think I read anything that has one of these adaptations. So for the month of September, no progress made in that one. Oh yes, I did. Should learn to scroll down before I speak. But so I read a book that has a movie adaptation. I will eventually see the movie adaptation. I'm just not entirely sure if the movie adaptation is just for the first one or not. But so that is Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery, which is a Canadian classic about a household consisting of a brother and a sister. They're a little bit more on the elderly side, and they decide to adopt a child. However, they were expecting a boy, but a girl shows up who cannot seem to stop talking and who has a very vivid imagination. Next up, disability representation, no progress throughout this month. Heritage months, there was no specific heritage month for the month of September. I am trying to do these challenges in the months that they apply. That gives you extra points, not that I'm actually calculating the points. So from the 15th of September it was what is it, words, make words. I'm not even, like, my brain is just like blanking at this point in time. Hispanic Heritage Month. But so I'm going to be reading that in October. But so yeah, aside from that, no specific Heritage Month for September, so I was also not reading for that. Then we get to the Translated Works Challenge, for which I finally logged my first book by logging the Kamogawa Food Detectives, which is a story about a restaurant in which you can also go if you want somebody to try and recreate a recipe from your past. Yeah, not the first translated work I read throughout this time period, but the first one that I'm not counting for other things, so the first one that can count for this one. Next up we have the Around the World Challenge, in which I've added another continent. So I've also added the continent of Australia right now by reading Green Dot by Madeline Gray, which is a story about an office romance, which turns out to be an office affair. Next up, the Bigger Rainbow. Here I've made a little bit more progress. So I've read for the color red Catabasis by R.F. Kuang, which is a thematic look at the trauma of academia by looking at a fantastical story of a descent into hell to try and retrieve your dissertation guidance counselor or whatever, I don't know how you call it in English. Next up, for the even bigger rainbow, green, I read Green Dots by Madeline Gray. And so that's the progress I made for those colors. I also still made one more, which is for the silver and gold color, for which I read Universality by Natasha Brown, which is a story that looks at a fictional crime of somebody more or less bludgeoning somebody to near death with a gold brick and then disappearing with the brick. It starts off like that. It's an article about this crime, and then we look at different people involved within the crime. Hated this one, don't recommend. And that's it for September for that one. Then we have the Spooky Creatures Challenge, for which I added 2 more because a book that I read had sea creatures in it and had some interpretation of creatures brought back from the dead, and that is Grave Empire by Richard Swan, which is a dark, gloomy fantasy story in which there definitely is some creepiness going on, and we have like one soldier who's left off, who has to take up a post in this very remote fortress, and that fortress is haunted by screams and weird sounds during the night. And we have our other character who is a diplomat who is representing these sea creatures that I talked about. Next up, the Avatar Challenge, and we have the first element that I've unlocked for this, which is water, for which I'm counting the Expanded Earth by Mikey Please again. So as I indicated, this is about humanity being shrunken down to the size of a foot. Part of this book looks at scientific research, and that involves creatures who live in the ocean, and water and the ocean play a big part of this book. So I definitely think, I definitely feel valid in counting it for this. Next up, Animal Challenge. So I've finally also counted something for this. For house pets, I've counted the Kamogawa Food Detectives because we have a cat here that is like constantly trying to sneak into the restaurant. Probably wants some of the juicy little fish. Butler, because I read Dawn by Octavia E. Butler. This is a book about the clash is too much of a word, but like the negotiations of relationships between 2 different races. I'm gonna leave it at that. Octavia E. Butler, yeah. Okay, which means that I'm further along than I said at the beginning of this video. Then we have the New Release Challenge. So I barely made it. Final night of the final night that counted for the 60 days. So for this challenge you have to read a new release within 60 days of its publication. So either 60 days within the 60 days before or 60 days after. And so the July one, it was touch and go. I was very close to it. That was really the final night. But I read 7 Recipes for a Revolution by Ryan Rose on the 6th 60th day of publication. So this is a culinary fantasy in which somebody at the bottom of the barrel is trying to make it into the culinary academy. However, in order to do so, he would have to make a greater recipe, which is basically a recipe that grants magical powers, and he has to basically steal a piece of steak in order to be able to do so. Very weird explanation I gave for you for this now. I feel like I didn't do much better of a job with that in my full description during the wrap-up, but you can go there for another interpretation of what this book is. And then I also read the new release for August at the same time as well, so I read Catabasis by R.F. Kuang for that one, so then we are in a better place now. I still need to read the September book, but the September book I am going to be reading in the month of October, so I'll try to not leave it to the last minute like I did for the 7 Recipes for Revolution, because that was actually quite, you know, like anxiety inducing. Non-fiction challenge, still have yet to read a non-fiction book since the start of Herc yet, so nothing counted there. Definitely need to start looking into that a little bit more. And then you also have like these Q's recommendation challenges, which I definitely need to look into further what those actually mean. And I actually really need to get a move on the subgenre challenge, because I feel like I've probably made quite some progress there, but I just never feel like looking into the fantasy and all of its different subgenres and which I'm going to count for what. So far I've just been ignoring that challenge. And then we get to the award season challenge. So this is basically you choose one award and then you read 7, I think, books from that particular award. So I have already previously counted one of the Booker Prize books for it, and then yeah, I need to, because it has like 4 levels and I've counted one as an entrance, but I'll count these 2 as semi-finalists, because basically the long list is the semi-final of the Booker Prize. So for this, because these were also not yet counted into my numbers, so my numbers are actually going up. So Misinterpretation by Lydia Shoga. This is a book about an Albanian interpreter translator. It's not really got a very clear plotline. It's a lot about her relationship with her husband, which is kind of fraught, and so them navigating sort of like a little bit of a falling out between each other. There's some Albanian mafia elements sprinkled into the story as well at times. It's not a full-on recommendation or anything like that. I gave it 3 stars. It was like, I ended up finding things I really enjoyed about the book, but also there's a lot of things that like didn't fully work for me in it. And then I also read Universality for this prompt. Okay, so 3 out of the 7 for that challenge at this point in time. And then the final thing is like the TBR challenge. Didn't make any progress in that because I had kind of basically said that I was going to use the TBR spin for that, but I've only done TBR spin in August. I didn't do it in September, so I should catch up to that at some point, but I also feel like I probably won't. So yeah, we'll see what happens with this challenge. And then the make a quote one is also that I've one that I've basically been avoiding so far looking at. So yeah, we'll just have to look and see where we go. And then you have the readathon challenge. I mean, yeah, that's like, I think that is like you take part in a readathon and you complete all of the prompts from the readathon, not just all of the prompts that you need, because otherwise I could count magical readathon for this, but I think it really is like complete all of the prompts that exist within that readathon, in which case no way. In which case I might try to do it with like my December lottery edition, except for the fact that I'm thinking of making that 25 prompts, which would also be way too many books. So yeah, we'll have to see when I come across like a readathon that is like doable for this particular challenge. But so yeah, I think that that is the progress we've made. So I'm going to refresh this page to see. So now it's saying 30% done, so 30% along the way of the challenge. So that's almost a third with like 3 months out of the 12. So yeah, that's nice on track actually. That's ahead of the curve. So we're happy with that. As I indicated, it's potentially the case that I'm actually further along, but I think that those prompts will probably be pretty easy to fill up, and otherwise I can always look back to see if some of these that I didn't really count. For example, I read Queen Bee by Juno Dawson. I haven't counted it for anything within this challenge, so potentially it can still count for something else. So yeah. Future me will potentially have a problem and have to look into we'll have to look back to see if actually she had already completed it and was just too lazy to properly look into it. But yeah, I think that was decent progress that we made in the month of September, and we're still very much on track for the Herkit one. I think there are certain challenges where we're very much behind, and I definitely need to start like paying more attention to them, stop procrastinating on thinking of a quote that I want to fill, look at fantasy and its subgenres, and like definitely start chipping away at those. But I think we're decently on track. At the beginning was always of course going to be a moment in which it's more easy to make progress. It's more easy to fill up some of these challenges, like that's one, the reading by the year challenge. You know, I think I've already read like a lot of 2024, 2025 releases, so that was one to easily fill up. But the further along we're going, it's probably going to get more and more difficult. So yeah, it might at some point need to shift into more of a strategy when it comes to picking out books to fulfill certain prompts. But as indicated at the beginning of the Herkit year, I basically am doing this like somewhat low key. I don't really want to stress out about completing this entire challenge. So we'll just have to see. Like I think we'll have a little bit more of a look at it when we are like halfway through the year, to see where we're standing. So basically when we are at the 1st of January, we'll basically have to have a look like, okay, how far along are we on track? The things that we still need to fill out, are they like super difficult? And maybe look for some intentional things then. But at this point in time, I'm still very much happy with where I'm at right now, and I don't necessarily see a need to freak out at this moment or to already really start planning my reads like intentionally. The only planning that is happening at the moment is those releases, is making sure that I have like a September and October release and that I'm getting to them in time. Because yeah, that is like a time sensitive one that you cannot just like willy-nilly do whenever you feel like it. But so yeah, with that is my Herkit challenge for the time being. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you're doing Herkit, let me know if you're also on track, and see you guys in the next video. Bye!